Yo, what's up, guys? This is Spread Scheme. We're back with our second episode. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the NFL's free agency. We're going to go around the divisions, giving a little bit of insight on what we think could happen, some moves that could happen this offseason. We're going to start off with the NFC East with Andrew.
Yeah, so obviously in the NFC East, the biggest free agent is obviously Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is very vital to the Cowboys, and he's clearly their biggest weapon. And he's obviously a very big topic in this offseason, with him being a free agent. And he hasn't really said anything about where he's gonna go. So yeah. Do you guys have thoughts about Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I could go. So I basically what I've been hearing on SportsCenter on ESPN is that they're not close. I feel like right now Dak's only place is in Dallas, so I'd like to see him return there. As an Eagles fan, he like kills us a bunch of times, but I feel like his only fit is in a Dallas Cowboys uniform.
I do think he'll stay in the division. I don't think it'll be with the Cowboys. I think it'll be with the football team, just considering his social media actions, following the Redskins, unfollowing the Cowboys, making a little bit of drama for free agency. So I do think he'll want a change of scenery since he's not getting paid the money he wants. Wants cash.
Yeah, I agree with Izel on that.
All right, so now we move on to the NFC North. So notable big teams to look out for a little bit are the Chicago Bears, who are involved in that Carson Wentz rumors of possibly swapping Nick Foles and him in a couple draft picks. I don't think that's the greatest fit for either the Bears or Wentz. They also have Allen Robinson as a free agent this year, who I don't think will stay with the team. So Mitchell Trubisky's also a free agent this year, and I don't think they'll give him an extension as they'll try and go find a new quarterback. I don't think Carson Wentz is the best fit for them. I think they should look for other options. Other than that, the Vikings and Packers seem to be set with their QB and their team situations. Now onto the NFC West.
The San Francisco 49ers are a team that Deshaun Watson is incredibly intrigued by. And I do think that he would fit well in the San Francisco since Jimmy Garoppolo in the past couple of years hasn't been himself. He was in the 2017 year, and he wasn't too bad on the Niners Super Bowl run, but I think they really do want to change the scenery at the QB position. I think Deshaun Watson would actually be a very good fit for them when the team becomes healthy. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree with trying to get Deshaun Watson. Even Carson Wentz had room. But if I were a 49ers fan, I want the organization to go for Deshaun Watson because Carson Wentz, he's been showing recently he's not been pulling it off. He's not the quarterback he once was. So Jimmy Garoppolo, I think they need to move on from him. They had that nice year with that Super Bowl run, but they missed out on the playoffs this year. So I don't think they're going to be back to where they were unless they get a new quarterback. They basically have a lot of weapons, especially with George Kittle at tight end. So I think if you can get Deshaun Watson on the team, then they'll be playoff contenders for sure.
I think another big situation would be J.J. Watt maybe going to the Cardinals. DeAndre Hopkins voicing his opinion that he wants him there, that he wants to left off where they started, as well as the whole Russell Wilson drama. Won't he get traded? I don't know. I mean, I don't really see him getting traded, but if it does happen, that would be a blockbuster move. Now moving on to the NFC South.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is with the Buccaneers, who are reigning champions. Their former wide receiver passed away at age 38. The cause of the death is unknown. It doesn't look like there was any violence in it, But yeah, many people are mourning his death. He used to be a former Charger, but it was a sad day a few days ago for the NFL fan base. So with the Buccaneers coming off their Super Bowl run, I think they're going to be running it back with most of the same weapons they had from last year. With Gronk coming up, they want to extend him. So Brady has one more year left on his contract, and he's probably going to get an extension depending on how he plays next year for the Buccaneers. But especially in the playoffs, it was amazing. So I think as long as he keeps that up next season, then the Bucs will definitely extend him for maybe a year or even 2. He said he wants to play past 45, and I think he will. He's an incredible athlete. Now, with a team like the Panthers, so I don't think you can count the Panthers out of getting Deshaun Watson because they need a quarterback bad. Teddy Bridgewater is not going to cut it as your main quarterback. They got plenty of options. Their wide receivers, DJ Moore is really good. Samuel is pretty good. So you got a lot of options on the offense. Christian McCaffrey, top 5 running back in NFL. So and they got a lot of options on defense too. So if you can just get that quarterback, then I think the Panthers will be a playoff contender with the Saints and Buccaneers in the NFC South. And going on to the Saints, they are no longer the favorites in my mind to take the South as they have been for the past few years. Drew Brees likely to be done after last season, so they're most likely going to have Jameis Winston at quarterback, and I just think the Buccaneers are going to be the new favorites after this because of what they were able to do this offseason. And with the Falcons, they need a new quarterback. I feel like Matt Ryan's time is done for Atlanta, so they have, I think it's the 4th pick in the draft. So there's many quarterbacks in this draft coming up. So I think they want to look towards Justin Fields in the draft because he is a stud quarterback and not as good as Trevor Lawrence, but I think he'd be a very good fit in the Atlanta Falcons offense. What do you guys
but with
think?
the Falcons, I mean, Matt Ryan's he's old, but he's not that old. You could try running it back, get an offensive lineman in the draft. I mean, Penei Sewell is a big offensive tackle talent. I mean, a lot of people don't believe the hype, but I still think they shouldn't go for a quarterback just yet, just because, I mean, Matt Ryan's was an MVP about 5 years ago. He still has, some sort of mentality to go get a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that might be a good move if they can try to get weapons on Matt Ryan. But if this might be his last year to did have a bit of a down year, but I feel like the defense is the biggest priority for the Falcons. They were known for choking every lead possible last year. So they would have been a good team if they didn't choke all those games. So I feel like maybe give Matt Ryan one more shot, and if not, then if they choose not to give him another shot, then I should try to draft a quarterback or even go with a wide receiver like Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase in the draft, which will be really good for them. Along with they have Julio Jones. So if you can get someone like Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase along with Julio Jones, that'll be a scary wide receiver face.
So now we're opening the floor to any other NFC talk we want to talk about. Does anyone else have any other, opinions where players should go? Some noticeable free agents being J.J. Watt, Dak Prescott, maybe Von Miller, A.J. Green, Melvin Ingram, Quan Short, Leonard Williams. Does anyone think they could move?
Well, I want to go back to the Carson Wentz rumor. Basically, there's been a lot of talk about Chicago Bears and the Indianapolis. Previously, I thought the Colts were the best fit for him, but now I feel like the Bears are a really good option for him because you got last year was Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles as quarterbacks. They both did really bad for Chicago. So I'm assuming that they're going to want to change the scenery in quarterback. They're not in a good draft position because they did make the playoffs last year with an 8-8 record. So they're probably not going to get a good quarterback in the draft. So unless they are dark horse candidates for Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz might be the best option for the Bears to go to. And coming from an Eagles fan, probably a little biased, but I feel like I'd love to see Nick Foles come back to the Eagles, be a veteran like clubhouse figure for Jalen Hurts, who has 4.5 games under his belt in the NFL. And so seeing, I feel like the trade rumors came out a few weeks ago of Carson Wentz going to the Bears for Tariq Cohen, the running back, a first rounder, and Nick Foles. This shocked everyone. It was scared a lot of Bears fans because Tariq Cohen's a really good young running back. So they were surprised trading him. And a first rounder, I don't think Carson Wentz is worth a first rounder. And then former two-time Eagle Nick Foles. So I feel like that would have been a great trade but that's not what it came to be. And recent reports, Bears are the front runners to get Carson Wentz. And I'm assuming with all quarterback trades, most of the time, quarterbacks are swapped. So I'm assuming Nick Foles is going to be swapped if they make a deal for Carson Wentz. So I love to hear something like that. But besides Nick Foles, you want to see a good return package if you were the Eagles. You want to see maybe a first round or 2 second-round picks, or maybe a future first-round pick in the 2022 draft, something like that. But the Eagles are not in a great state with Wentz right now, unless the Colts make a better offer. But they're not giving any first-round picks away, so I don't think the Colts want him as much as the Bears, I think, will need him. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chris on that. I think that would be a great trade for the Eagles if they are able to manage to get a first-round pick, a couple second-rounders, even a future first-round, along with Tariq Cohen and Nick Foles. I think that would be a pretty good deal for the Eagles. Not necessarily for the Bears, but it would be good to see another speedy running back like Tariq Cohen. He could be like another, Darren Sproles, along with a couple first-round picks. Future first-round pick and a first-round pick in this draft. That would be huge, and I think the Eagles would enjoy that trade.
As the NFC North, I'd have to say, not looking at Carson Wentz, look at some other options. You got Jimmy Garoppolo. The year both Garoppolo and the Bears as an offense had good years would be when they were both playing systematic football. They were set in their systems, and they were able, pass the ball, do a little bit of running, do a little bit of everything. And I think Matt Nagy could still get some production out of Jimmy Garoppolo, and that Bears defense is a monstrosity if they're all healthy. So I honestly think they should not look to Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz has flaws with, him not being able to read defenses at some points, him making questionable decisions, which is similar to a quarterback by the name of Jay Cutler and Mitchell Trubisky, who are the two past quarterbacks of this Bears era. So I think they need to get over that, mistaken sort of quarterback pool and start looking at as more system quarterback. To the AFC. So we're going to start with the AFC East.
So for the AFC East, we've got the Dolphins with Tua, and Deshaun Watson is obviously would obviously be a great pickup for Miami. This over the weekend he was in Miami with a couple of Dolphins players, Raekwon Davis and Christian Wilkins. So that's just a little thought. And I think especially since what's his name? Ryan Fitzpatrick is a free agent this year. I think they would need another quarterback, whether it be Deshaun, and then trade Tua away for some kind of backup and picks or something. I think they'll need another quarterback. So yeah, I think Miami would be a good spot for Deshaun. Players, well, obviously, most players want to go to a bigger city, because that's where it is. So I feel like Miami would be a great spot for Deshaun Watson. I'm not so sure it's gonna happen, but I do think that would be a pretty good spot.
I agree.
On their team, which I think was a great move for the Dolphins to jump on. They may have to. I feel like they may have to give up Tua to the Texans for him, but I feel like if you're in win now mode, Deshaun Watson is a better option than Tua, which kind of is a shame for Tua, but I feel like he'd be pretty good with the Texans, and the Texans might be able to try to build around him and not make him into what Deshaun Watson was, where they didn't build around him good enough.
I'd probably say I want him in a Jets jersey. Just that New York culture's been struggling for decades now. They need a quarterback in general. Sam Darnold's not cutting it at all. So I think that the second overall pick, a couple more draft capital, which they got from the Jamal Adams trade, for Deshaun Watson, get him to New York, build around him, start getting some pieces, free agency wise. They do have some comfortable cap room, so I would say go out and get Deshaun Watson. Now, AFC North wise, I think a big team that not a lot of people are talking about that could be a contender this year or in years to come would be the Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow is coming off an ACL injury, but if he comes back 100% healthy, they build up that offensive line and they sign someone like Allen Robinson, Kenny Galladay, or even if they re-sign AJ Green, just to get some weapons around him. And in the draft, they pick Penei Sewell, or they go in free agency, get Trent Williams, and in the draft, they get their offensive weapon there. They, I think, are a great contender for the division. I think that division is going to become sort of the new NFC South, and where all four teams are competing for that division title, especially since, the Steelers, they had a good start, but towards the end of the year, they started struggling. They brought in Dwayne Haskins. I don't know if that's 100% the right move for them as quarterbacks go, but I hope everything works out there. Also, for the Browns competed really well against the Chiefs. They have about, I'd say, the 10th or 9th most cap room in the whole league. They can go out and get another player to fertilize that defense a little bit better with a linebacker. Specifically, an option there would be Melvin Ingram, maybe Bud Dupree. If they get lucky, Shaquille Barrett. As well as the Ravens. Ravens need a wide receiver. There's a bunch of wide receivers in AJ Green, Allen Robinson. They could possibly even trade up in the draft, which they've done before, to get weapons. So I think that's a very good situation for the AFC North.
Yeah, I feel like a team like the Bengals, as you said, I really like Joe Burrow. I was a big fan of watching him in LSU, and he didn't have the best season because of his injury, but I feel like next year he's going to be right on track. I feel like this player can have a good career going down the line if he gets players built around him.
Now moving on to the AFC West. Let's see what we got there.
Yeah, so we've got another Deshaun Watson rumor here on the AFC West. The Broncos are a potential trade target for Deshaun Watson, since he said that he was very intrigued by the Broncos team and their coaching staff. So I think Deshaun Watson, I don't know if he'd be a great fit, but I think he'd do it's solid in Denver. And it's just kind of weird since they drafted Drew Lock the year before, and I don't think they would really say goodbye to him that easily. That's why the Broncos aren't that sold on Deshaun Watson. But I do think he would be a very good destination for Deshaun. It would be a solid destination for Deshaun Watson. Anyone have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I would like to see Watson in a Broncos uniform. I've always like the Broncos, especially because their playoff run a few years Super Bowl. I enjoyed watching them play with Peyton Manning as the quarterback. So they haven't had a good quarterback in recent years. So I feel like if they could get Deshaun Watson, that might be a good move and turning point for their franchise going forward.
I also think it would be a good, situation for the Broncos. They have a couple weapons wide receiver wise, and I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting seeing another competitive couple of years from the Broncos after the whole Peyton Manning era. They do have a quarterback issue with Drew Lock. I don't feel that that's their guy. I would suggest they have a better shot of trading up in the draft and getting someone like Trey Lance or maybe even Zach Wilson if Justin Fields does go to a team in the top 4. So I'm not 100% sure Deshaun Watson's priority should be there. I think they should stick with probably the Jets, the Dolphins, and the 49ers. Now moving on to the AFC South.
Yeah, there are a lot of moves in that can happen. So first we got the Tennessee Titans, who won their division one game last year in an epic final game. They did lose in the wild card round, Ravens, but they have a solid team with Derrick Henry, who, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL right now, had a 2,000-yard season. Only a few running backs have ever done that in the NFL, and he can bring this team to a much better state. If he has a season like that again, you have Ryan Tannehill as the starting quarterback. And after he left the Dolphins, he's been a solid pickup with the Titans. He's been doing really good, and he's more of a relaxed quarterback because he has Henry in the backfield. And going on to the Colts, who came in second in the division, obviously one of the favorites to land Carson Wentz. But here is a report by NBC Sports. Colts reportedly not budging on Carson Wentz trade offer. So the Eagles are trying to get multiple first-round picks from the Colts or the Bears. That is not going to happen because that's what Matthew Stafford got. And Matthew Stafford is much better than Carson Wentz. So if that's what the Eagles want from the Colts are not going to take that. So in my opinion, I feel like if that's what the Eagles offer the Colts should just hold back on it. It's not worth it. You can land a quarterback in another way. But the thing is with the Colts that you could try to get Jimmy Garoppolo, someone like him, because you're not in a good draft position. They did really good last year, but Rivers had to retire, so you have a hole at quarterback. So Carson Wentz but you don't want to give up too much for the future for a quarterback that who brought his team to 4 wins last year. And going on to the Texans, who came at 3rd in the division, who are the team who has Deshaun Watson now. So it's been a wild ride for Texans fans. So they just released J.J. Watt after 10 years on the team. He posted a video on Twitter, saying goodbye to all the Texan fans who've carried him on through the years, which, if you're a Texans fan, that's sad to see if your lifelong player demands a release because your team is going through an awful state right now. Deshaun Watson, people said, the team's saying he's not going to go anywhere. They're not going to trade him, but Deshaun Watson's such a good quarterback. He cannot be left in that situation or disaster in Houston. All of Houston's sports teams are doing awful right now with the Astros, with their cheating scandal, the Rockets with losing Harden on all of that, and the Texans with going to lose Deshaun Watson. So that's going to be awful going forward for the Texans. And then last but not least in the South, we got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have the number 1 overall pick, and there is a 99% chance they're going with Trevor Lawrence in the draft. He's was the top quarterback at Clemson. He's going to carry that going forward, and that's really all the news going on for the Jaguars because I feel like they could be good down the line. They have a chance to compete in the South because the teams aren't amazing. The top team, Titans, were 11 wins, so it's not like there's a 14-win team in the division. So I feel like if they get Trevor Lawrence, build around him, they can definitely be maybe a 8-8 team or maybe even a 9-7 team, which I don't think that's going to happen. But if they pull all the right cards, then that definitely will happen for Jackson.
I think the Jags probably are a topic that you bring up because they do have the most cap room in the whole entire league. So that means if they feel like Von Miller's a viable option and Von Miller has disagreements with the Broncos and they decide to part ways, that's a really interesting option. I mean, only been about 4 years removed since they went to the AFC Championship. Of course, that core is not there anymore, so they're looking to move into a new direction. So maybe they could try and have a big free agency this year, as well as a couple good draft picks in the first round, with them having 3 this year, having the first overall pick. So who knows, really? The Jags are an open door. Texans situation with a lot of players and stars trying to say they're leaving, and J.J. Watt being released. Their team is in a whole mix-up right now. They really just need to get as much value for Deshaun Watson as possible. If Deshaun Watson decides to hold out and keeps his mindset of being traded, so they can get as many draft picks and as many young talents as they can to be able to rebuild that team pretty quickly. All right, so that was this week's episode of The Spread Scheme. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. We'll come back with another episode on Friday.